Welcome to Going Deep. It's been a little while. Brandon Angelo, Matt Waldman. We're going to
Yes,
talk wide receivers, my man.
absolutely.
Yeah, 24 class a little bit. Then we'll get into the 25 class. So, we're going to roll into this. We're going to start with, is there a 2024 wide receiver class? Excuse me, 2024 wide receiver from the rookie class last year that you're just writing off after year one? You're just like,
Oh
done.
god.
What for whatever reason.
Okay. Oh man. I would say probably Xavier Legette.
Wow. Okay.
I would say biggest reason is when I watched that offense, he was the third or fourth best receiver. If you
Yeah.
count Deontay Johnson stop in Carolina land. Um, I like Jalen Coker a lot.
Yes.
I think he is a much more down to down available receiver than an Xavier Legette. And I think he's going to grow into the Adam Thielen role when Adam Thielen decides to hang him up. Um, Liget just has some issues, I think, with being refined at the top of routes and just getting open consistently and uncovering. Like that's a big deal with him. He has all the physical ability in the world, but you look at a guy like that and it's tough to kind of project him to be anything other than a tertiary option in an offense, right? That might have some explosives here or there, but is he going to be you're going to, you're down 7 in the fourth quarter and you're going to have to rely on a guy down to down to hit on some big time plays and some high leverage situations. That's not really him. And I don't know if that's ever going to come. I think the risk with him coming out was exactly that, was that the refinement never comes and he's just kind of a splash play type guy. And I think that's kind of what he's going to turn into, especially because I think Carolina's going to add a significant piece to that offense this offseason. I think they have to for Bryce Young's development. I think, going into another season with Thielen, Coker, Ligat is not great for Bryce Young. And then you're missing Jonathan Brooks for a whole nother season potentially, and that leaves a big void offensively for you, with just Chuba Hubbard being honestly your primary playmaker.
Yeah.
So I think they add someone else, and then that kind of muddies it because who's the secondary earner? If Thielen's there, it's probably Thielen. If he's not there, it's probably Coker. Either way, that leaves Liget as a tertiary or a fourth option in a passing game. And in an offense that's not going to light it up for 25 a game, that doesn't really leave you, with that much confidence long term.
Yeah, in role, he's a less refined Quentin Johnston. Maybe not as a talent, but a
Yes.
less refined,
Sure.
but in role, that's
Sure.
kind of what you're seeing. And I would say that's probably the best one that we could mention on the field. Off the field, I think it's obvious it's Jermaine Burton. Um,
Burton, Baker, you name them,
yeah,
both.
yeah,
Same.
yeah. I would. I'm going to be hopeful for Baker only because maybe it's more daddy than it is son, as you
Yeah.
reported. But with Burton, it's become very apparent that Burton he got a few chances, few big opportunities that were kind of like, okay, dude, get it together. We're gonna give you this one, but dude, you got to grow up. Like you've got to mature. You've got to. There's some things that are going on. We are leaking some things to the media to kind of put notice that you've got to do better. And this is consistent with what, in hindsight, I didn't hear this beforehand, but in
Right.
hindsight, that was talked about specifically with him, at least in many circles, about his behavior off the field. So I think at this point, when you look at players who are that talented, and he has shown moments that you could say, okay, I see why they took the chance on him, but it's not working. And I think I would rather be surprised at this point than waiting on him. So I'd get out
Yeah.
from under him.
100%. And I think with Burton and a lot of guys, I think it's less about the talent and more about can they be a professional athlete.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the case with we mentioned Von Baker too. Same, very similar, right? I think different in terms of it might be external family members, right? That aren't helping out in that regard. We don't know. But with Burton, it's shifting towards potential legal action in multiple cases. So,
Yeah. How
we're
about
looking at kind of a downturn.
where, I don't want to put them in the same category, but another New England Patriot that a lot of people were excited about was Jalen Polk. So where are you with him? Because I know you were a guy that was like, okay, and a lot of us felt like, okay, I felt like he was certainly no worse than like a contributor level type of
Yeah,
talent. Like
100%.
a regular contributor, even if he's not a starter. So what do you think from what you've seen at this point?
I think it's tough because when you look at that offense and you look at what Mayo kind of did, it was really interesting because they had no consistent target on the outside or in the middle of the field or even in the short to intermediate areas. I mean, there was not a guy that, besides Hunter Henry, really, that was entrusted with the down to down work. And one of the issues I think too with New England was Mayo wanted those guys to grow up and mature from the first game.
Yeah,
And
not
he didn't
happening.
give them time to grow into a larger role. And instead, we saw regression, which should never happen for rookies. It should always be a progression through the season. Look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, for example, and a similar style player to Polk, progressed throughout his rookie year, and then the light bulb flickered on, and now he's a superstar, right? Opposite with Polk. I think Polk has the ability to, like you said, be a contributor for that New England offense, but I don't think he was afforded the opportunity. And also the role he was playing on the outside. He was playing X. It was him and Boute. That
Yeah,
was it.
yeah,
So it's like, this is a guy that is best on the inside. He's best as a chain mover and a reliable option on third down. And you can move him around in 12 personnel because he can block and he's tough. But that's never what they did. Like Van Pelt didn't want to do that. And Mayo was like, no, he's not getting on the field. We're to let the other guys, Douglas and company, kind of clean it up. But I don't know what to think going forward. It depends on what they do in the draft too. Um, I think they add a significant piece. I know T. Higgins will be in play for them. Vrabel really wants to add talent to that room, and I think for the development of Drake May, that makes perfect sense. So I don't know. It's tough, man, because once you go through year one, then you get a new head coach. Schematically, things are going to look different on offense. Then it's like, we don't need you anymore. So it's tough to rebound from that if you're a rookie.
if I'm going to make fun of New England, which I've often done when it comes to wide receiver play, which is if I used to joke that if I could beg a team to just pay me, um, basically what I make on my books, and maybe a little more than that. I don't know, depending on what the thing is, or even less, and I could just keep doing my book, just for the pure charity of it. I would love to be their wide receiver scout because the only thing they're good at picking is slot receivers. And I thought maybe it was Bill Belichick and maybe his coaching staff overriding the scouts, but I don't know if those guys are all there. I don't. Belichick's gone, so it must be the organization because when you look at the organization, and when you look at the organization, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Jalen Polk is a slot receiver who can sometimes play flanker or other spots, but he's primarily a slot receiver. He's just a different
Yeah,
brand. Demario Douglas, slot receiver with gadget kind of potential, kind of in that Wandale Robinson kind
sure.
of mold, a little Calvin Austin if you want to get a little deeper. Maybe he can give you
Right.
some of that. We know that Keishon Butte is a slot receiver who sometimes can play flanker, and they had him at X, and he was still beating people at X, which
It's just it's just so they can never get it right at receiver. I mean, think about it like this. How many receivers have they drafted that have gone on to have 1,000 yards in the past decade?
Deion Branch is too long ago, and I don't think he ever got to 1,000. So
Edelman was the last one I
Yeah.
could think.
And
Then
he was a quarterback.
Yep. And then
Yeah.
Randy Moss, they traded for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
I
not,
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
they've had no success for years. So it's I just think that this is one of those groups that you look at this and I'd say, if it were me, I would people will find this an unpopular opinion, but I'd say Demario Douglas is only going to give you so much. I think Keishon Butte is going to give you more if he's caught on to what's going on. I would make him my starter. I'd
Absolutely.
keep Jalen Polk. I'd see if I could trade Demario Douglas to somebody and get a little more value than what I acquired him for. And then, the other type that they like to get a lot is what I call the Dorsett type. Which is the speedster who doesn't really do anything, like Tyquan Thornton.
Yeah, it's just bizarre, and it's again and again and again, and it's
like they have a type. Like if they were dating, they'd have a type, and you'd be back in the bar with them and go, "Dude, what crazy dating story do you have for me about how this ended poorly? And can we pick the person for you?" And then when they do, and they shake their head and go, "No, I want this person right over here," and they literally have like massive issues literally stamped on their forehead, but like they can't see it.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, you're right. I think, Boute's looked better and better and better, and I think he can turn into a secondary option in offense now. I mean, he was, if you think about it, 4 years ago at this time, he was in like Devy, he was a top 3 Devy pick.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where he was, right?
Yeah.
He had the talent, then he had, multiple surgeries. And then he had the legal issues, and so he got pushed down. But he
fought through it.
Yeah, he's turning into a pro a bit. And I think he's someone you can have be a key contributor on your offense if you put him in the right place to succeed. But they have 4 guys on that roster that are primary slot receivers.
Yeah.
You can move around. They can be Z. That they just miscast them. Yeah. And like Javon Baker too, he's a more natural Z than he is an outside X.
Yes.
And he's getting garbage time snaps at X. It's like, what are we doing? Not every receiver they have is going to play X. Like, it's unbelievable to me, the mismanagement of that room.
There's somebody, I feel like there's 3 guys in there, like how the Bears guys in the bar from the SNL skit or but it's the Patriots, and it's like coaches and scouts together, and they're going, "I tell you what we're gonna do," but with like Southie Boston accents.
Yeah,
we just need like a Wes Welker, a Julian Edelman, and a Danny Amendola. And if we just put the ball on the field at the same time with that route running skill, they're just going to be, it's almost like a fan fantasy. It's like fan fiction for wide receiver acquisition, and it's not good fan fiction. So yeah. So rounding out this questions about the 2024 class, who do you think is the 2024 wide receiver in this class from this past class who will earn significant production increase and earn a significant increase in production in 2025, regardless of whether they're going to make the jump in talent or not? That you just think talent, opportunity, whatever, this is they're going to win with the chance.
Sure. I'd say when we talk about significant, I'm talking like 500 plus more yards, right?
Right.
I would say there are 3 guys that come to mind. Malik Washington.
Yep.
Loved him out of Virginia. I think Tyreek Hill is not a Dolphin anymore. I think he can complement what Jalen Waddle does extremely well and be a higher volume target in that offense, right? I think he's a phenomenal player. Second one is pretty obvious, Rome Odunze.
Yes.
I think we're not going to go off the rails on the Chicago Bears. Um, I'm really excited about Ben Johnson.
I was gonna say we'll just say Ben Johnson over and over again, and we'll call him. You never
Yeah,
know,
and
man.
then we can figure that out. But I think first of all, we saw the talent of Adunze, what he does well at the catch point. Also, too, he's one of those guys that he doesn't have the one big shining trait. Holistically, he's just a good football player.
Yeah,
And he's someone you want to give targets to at all three levels. Um, so I think, the offense not being ran through 32-year-old Keenan Allen is going to be great.
yes,
But I think he's someone I will definitely be a higher target earner. And the third is Ricky Pearsall,
yeah,
right? Uh, You know, got shot, had that shoulder injury too throughout camp, missed a ton of camp. I think for Pearsall, Debo Samuel, I don't know. He might be on his way to done. George Kittle's great, but he's not going to be, as high a target earner as he was last year.
yeah.
Brandon Ayuk has the ACL, so we don't know how long he's going to be out for, and if he is, he's going to be worked into that offense. Juwan Jennings is just a secondary, a tertiary piece, in my opinion. I think
Agree.
Pearsall can be a go-to target for Brock Purdy. He looked more comfortable as the year went on, especially the last few games. It was that game, I think, against the Lions that we really saw him kind of open it up as a route runner and show the chops that, everybody had him really high coming out of Florida, right? So, yeah, man, I think those are my three. Malik Washington is definitely the one. He's probably, if you're listening and you're in dynasty leagues, he's the cheapest option now because his stock is going to go to the moon once the news breaks that Tyreek Hill is no longer a Dolphin.
Yeah, you took all the ones I had too. They were all three in my list, and that's good.
Love it.
I'll add one more just for the fun of it, but it's dependent on one thing. It's contingent on me being able to hire someone to sneak into the Arizona Cardinals facility, and to be able to trade, to be able to find a way to trade Kyler Murray without the organization knowing and getting themselves an actual pocket quarterback who will throw downfield,
Yes.
in a manner that he can distribute the ball equally among his talents. Because this is if you took, I'll put it this way, if you gave, if you gave Joe Burrow the Arizona Cardinals receivers,
Oh my God.
I think Michael Wilson would have produced just as well as T. Higgins, or close to it. I think that, you would have gotten way more from Trey McBride. He would have doubled what Mike Gesicki might have done. And then, while I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. would have equaled Jamar Chase, the difference between Jamar Chase and what those other guys that I just mentioned would have done an upgrade, it still would have been enough for it to be like 1,000 yards. He probably would have been at least a 1,200-yard receiver, I think.
100%.
Yeah. So I don't think Marvin's going there, but but I think that if for some reason we get a shocker and say they meet with Kyler Murray and they talk with him about the things that they'd like to see, and Kyler has a temper tantrum and they decide to ship him out of town, and we have like a draft day deal or a pre-draft deal that shocks everybody, and it turns out that now they have themselves a quarterback that is maybe not as exciting as Murray is, but might be one who can distribute the ball better. I think then you're going to be very excited about Marvin Harrison, but for now he's in limbo.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, we've talked about Kyler Murray, I think, a good amount. And he just can't ever play in rhythm consistently.
No.
And it is neutering some really good players on that offense.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason you should go through a season and not have Marvin Harrison Jr. over 1,000 yards, right?
Yep.
Trey McBride not have more than 8 touchdowns.
Kyler Murray's like an avant-garde painting or a free jazz. Like, it's not necessarily like there's both artists in those realms that are legit like fantastic and meaningful, and then there's some who like basically rode the wave of the moment and decided to enter this fray where and people were paying them exorbitant sums of money to just like do stuff that's nonsensical, but the critics have bought into it. And I would say that Kyler Murray is the football version of that.
Yeah, it's like when you've seen those. There's an episode of Friends. I think I don't know if you've probably seen Friends before, right?
Yeah, I have.
There's an episode I think where they go to like an art gallery and just like a streak of blue paint or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's like $2 million, and everybody's like, "Yes, that's it right there."
Yes.
That's Kyler Murray in a sense,
Yeah.
where it's like we're told he's really good, but he's just not very good.
No.
Like he doesn't do any of the things you want a winning quarterback to do consistently whatsoever. I could talk for days on the things that I want to see from him to take that next step, but it's never going to happen at this point in his career. So, I mean, yeah, they need a new quarterback. I mean, if you told me, I'm not even the biggest Shedeur Sanders fan here,
Right.
but if you told me, hey, we're trading Murray and we're going to go get Sanders, I'd say, great, better fit. He can actually distribute the ball.
Yep.
Has some problems in the pocket. It gets too skittish at times, but hey, I mean, if you teach him to calm down, he's going to get the ball to your playmakers. Kyler Murray can't do that.
Yeah, and then Cleveland's going to end up with him. Okay, so thanks.
Yes.
I appreciate that. That will be my punishment. I will definitely be. The one half
God.
Raven jersey, one half Browns jersey will be a whole Ravens jersey.
Yeah.
Unless I just hope that Nick Chubb will just run him over on an exchange, and
That'd be good.
That'll be the end of Kyler Murray. But but okay. So transition into 2025. How many wide receivers from the 2025 class do you think you're gonna have a potential to value among the top 12 receivers from this excellent 2024 class?
If we're talking about knowing what we know now,
yeah,
I think it's for sure Travis Hunter if he played full-time receiver.
Okay.
I think Travis Hunter is the best wide receiver prospect in this class. Not even particularly close. Then I would say probably, Luther Burden.
Okay.
Matthew Golden.
Okay.
Tat McMillan. Emeka Ibuka. Jalen Royals.
Wow. Okay.
Those are the guys I say have a shot. I think Harris has a shot too. A couple others. But I think really the bar is this. McConkey is kind of that bar, right? Like he's the wide receiver 4 in last year's class, but he was drafted typically. He's 1,000+ yard receiver. I don't know who produces in this class at that level. That's the hard part.
Yeah. I would say this. Oops. Where was I here with what I was looking at? What did I just do? Anyway, I would say this. Looking at my list thus far, I would agree with you on Burden, Golden, and Hunter. No particular order, just that they're all in that conversation. I'll add one more to that list, but I'm going to talk about him a little bit later.
Right.
But so I would say conservatively 3 would fit in my top 12.
For sure.
If I'm giving allowances for they run better at the combine, and I had sneaking suspicions that they are faster than what I saw, and a little more explosive, and it lends to some of the things that I have in my notes, maybe 5 to 6. Maybe you could double that from 3 to 6. But that's about it. And I think there's a lot of players in this class that it's hard to describe this class to a lot of people because most people will just say, oh, this class sucked. Like, it was, this class just isn't good. and you know, they would probably just look at that and say, yeah, no thanks. Um, but I think that there's a lot of players in this class who, in 3 to 4 years, could develop into contributors, just not high end fantasy guys. There's always going to be a chance of 1 to 3 guys surprising everybody, and that's with every class that we just didn't really see or we overlooked. Um, but I think that, for this class, there just aren't. I don't think there's a slam dunk player that I would just go day one primary starter. I would probably just look at it and say there's some guys who are close, but not. I don't think it's happening. Like, they would need some special circumstances. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. For sure. There's definitely, I think I'm in the same vein of the only primary starter I have is someone I don't know who's gonna I don't know how many snaps Travis Hunter's gonna play, right?
right.
And that's the tougher part is like he's for me, I don't know where he's at for you, but for me, he's far and away the best receiver prospect in this class in terms of just the holistic nature of what he brings to the table. But we don't know how many snaps he's playing on offense, right?
Yeah.
Because he's also has the potential to be an all-pro defensive back.
Yep.
So
And that has more values in some circles for sure.
yeah, so that's the tough thing. And all these guys have questions, right? Luther Burden could be a fantastic wide receiver, but I have in my notes that he's the opposite of Tyler Lockett. He is such a reckless, erratic player at times, but that's kind of the canvas for him, which is tough. So it's like, can he clean that up and make sure that he's calmer at some parts of his game and then turn that on? Like Malik Neighbors figured that out.
Yeah.
And that's something I think in college with Neighbors too. That was there a little bit, but as a pro, he learned in his rookie season, okay, I have to sometimes catch it and get down.
Yeah.
Right. This is how I have to run these type of routes with Drew Lock versus Daniel Jones, right? And so that's the tougher thing. And you go to Tet McMillan, it's like there are some concerns there for me. And then you get to guys like, Golden and Royals and Harris and some of the other guys I think that are pretty good in this class. And it's like, what are they going to be? Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
And it's tough. I mean, I think that's a difficult part of this class. And you're right. I think in 4 years, we're going to be like, that guy actually turned out being a pretty good pro. But there are guys like Jalen Noel from Iowa State,
Yeah.
and Tej Johnson from Oregon, who are likely going to be good pros. Will they be high-end fantasy producers? Probably not. But they're going to help teams out. So it's one of those classes where we're going to see, I think, a lot more 2s and 3s. And have a hard time finding a set it and forget it day one starter.
Yeah, I had 20 players who you could expect within a year or two to be starters in the NFL last year. 20, and I knew, obviously there's a factor off the field, all those types of things, but the talent of what they showed on the field and how it translates, there were 20 players. That's unheard of for me to score players.
For all positions or just receiver?
Just receiver. To have
Wow.
20 players who I scored above at 85 or above on my scoring list, that's unheard of. It was the highest scoring class I've ever given. This year, I think I've got six players within striking range of 85 right now. That's going to change, in the coming weeks, especially as we solidify things with the combine, and I can use that to help cross-check what I'm seeing on film.
Sure.
But I have 20 players who are in the range of basically 80 to 84 on my group, which is, these are guys, when you look at the league right now, these are guys who wind up on benches, and some of them can contribute when they're put into the game, but they have a clear hole in their game. They need a clear role, and they maybe only play 1 or 2 spots, and one's their strongest spot, and they may be a year or two if not more, before they can really develop into someone that people go, oh, that Noah Brown guy's pretty good. You can put him on any team, and he can give you like occasional starter value in a certain role, or or somebody who emerges. Jawan Jennings and Noah Brown are those types of
Sure.
players.
Yeah.
They're on the low end of that scale, but they're guys that you look at and go, yeah, that could develop. And then you maybe look at somebody who, a year or two down the line, you look at and go, oh, maybe they like a Robert Woods who becomes a starter and then ends up becoming really good, maybe he needed a year or two and he needed the right system. So yeah, it's a different class in that way because like to me, like Savion Williams is very intriguing. Like
Yeah.
out of TCU, I'm a fan of him, and I like him more than Tet McMillan. And I know a
Sure.
lot of people love Tet. I'm not a big lover of Tet, but like that could change a little bit because just to give people insight into my process. A lot of what I do is I've probably watched, 6 to 8 games of every player at this point, and then when the combine comes, I've noted questions of like, okay, I've watched these things on tape. I'm going to need to spot check certain things because I've got them scored between two areas right now. And I usually keep them at the lower level of that range until I see enough definitive proof to move them up. But I've
Yes.
marked, there's maybe 20 or 30 players on my list of 67 I've watched at this position where I'm like, there's at least one, if not 3 things that could dramatically change their score. So, Tet McMillan could end up being in my top 5 to top 10. Right now, he's not. But he's still got a good enough score that I'm not saying he's a bust. I'm just saying maybe he's a little bit of a little overhyped. Like I think obviously he can catch well. His route running, I think, is in between tiers for me. Like I've got some things I want to watch and get a little bit of a better feel for what he can and can't do. And I don't see him. I see him more as a specialist that as a starter than as an every down like primary guy. He's not in the he's not in he's more in that Mike Williams type of thing.
Yeah, he
Bad.
has a niche, and that's
Yeah.
I agree with you. He has some of the skills that you want to be a primary starter, to be the guy, but I'm with you in the same way. I don't see that happening soon.
Right.
I think it can happen, but I don't see it happening like from day one, right? That's the thing too. He's gonna be probably drafted in the top 10.
Yeah.
That's my guess in the
Yeah.
NFL draft. He's gonna be a top 10 pick. There's a receiver thin group. He's gonna be drafted in the top 10. That's my worry is you get him, let's say he goes to a place like New England, right, at 4. Him on number 1 corners day 1,
Yeah.
that's tough. That's a tough ask for that kid. And I think he's talented, kind of like you. The route running's in between. He's good at the stem sometimes, and at times there's too much drifting, right? And it's not as clean and concise as you want it to be, especially at a NFL starter level, right? Or high end down to down producer. And that's the tough thing about McMillan is he's not that guy right now. We like the tools and traits. We love the size. But the bigger you are, the harder it is.
Yeah.
And that's the tough thing is, look, I mean, I think the high end of what he can be is he could be a T. Higgins type player, potentially be a great secondary receiver in the NFL offense, kind of be the Robin to a Batman, so to speak. That's not a bad thing whatsoever.
No. But it can be overvalued in a thin class.
And
then you've wasted capital a bit. Yeah.
That's the thing that's tough. It's like, where, like, if you're talking about pure value, like, yeah, right now I'd rather probably have Matthew Golden.
I think he's the safest player.
Yeah. I mean,
in this class.
Matt Golden, man, if Jalen Royals would have played a whole season, I mean, he would have probably had 1,500 yards and 100 catches. I mean, he'd be valued in the late first round. I think he's a safe pick too in terms of a guy I think that can produce.
Okay.
But I think too as well, it's like, look, like McMillan's gonna be drafted in the top 10. It's a lot of hype. But if that's me and whatever team he goes to, if he gets drafted in the top 10, look at those teams that are picking there.
Yeah.
He's going to be the wide receiver one or the primary option in a lot of those passing attacks, which I necessarily don't love for a guy like him who needs to develop.
Yeah. So who else is someone that I obviously brought him up as a guy that I think is getting too much buzz right now? Is there somebody else that you think is getting too much buzz?
That he was mine.
Okay.
He was absolutely mine. I would say Luther Burden a little bit. I like Luther Burden a lot, but I think he's farther away. He's closer yet farther away than to what I think we all believe he is. What I mean by that is he's close because he has the attributes, the physical attributes to be a high-end starter in the league, right? To be a Rashee Rice type of player, of what Rashee Rice has grown into right before he got hurt. But also, too, there's a lot of risk with a player like that because what ends up happening is you have someone who plays so hard, so fast that the game has not slowed down for him because he just hasn't allowed it to. He doesn't have a second gear. Yeah. He has stop and he has go. And that's a tough thing with players like him. It's, you listen to, Bill Belichick talk about, changing direction. Right? How you need to be able to control everything in your routes. And he was talking about Travis Kelce and how good at that and changing tempo and kind of oscillating that, how good Kelce is at it. And he absolutely, because he's Kelce's kind of a dinosaur at this point, but you kind of have to.
Doesn't matter. So was Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez and
exactly.
Todd
They mastered
at the end of their careers.
They mastered those skills. Yeah, they mastered those skills. And that's something I think, too, that's going to take a little bit longer for a guy like Burden to potentially grasp. And that's fine, but you have to be able to grasp that in order to take the next step. And that's why I think for me, it's like, look, like this is not a guy I think day one you're going to put an NFL offense, an NFL ecosystem. He's going to have 1,400 yards. No, he's going to have to really grow and be coached on, how to play down the way that he needs to play to have a long, successful career.
So who's someone that you think is not getting enough buzz?
Golden is one. We've talked about him a bit. I just think like he's the safest receiver in this class just because he's good on all three levels, right? He's kind of the Chris Olave, so to speak, in terms of just safety, right? Olave could start for probably every team in the NFL.
Right.
And we could safely say that, or most every team in the NFL.
Right.
And be productive, right? And I think that's kind of Golden's archetype, so to speak. A little bit more abrupt than Olave is, but I think he can be productive in a similar vein, at least a healthy Chris Olave. The guy I would say as well is Jalen Royals.
Okay.
I think he's not getting enough buzz. And I think a lot of it has to do with he missed 7 games because of the foot. And they've said it's not going to impact his, combine, pro day, all that. I think he's going to the Senior Bowl, one of the two. But for me, a guy like Royals is in that same vein, but really good in this, really good short to intermediate area guy. Has showed some chops at the catch point too, in terms of making the proper adjustments in flight. But he's a really good boots on the ground receiver. I think he's better in the slot than the outside. Is good and reliable in the intermediate areas of the field. But he's someone I think that a quarterback will like because he's quarterback friendly. He can be an extension of the run game. There are some things I like there with him. But he's a guy, look, if you look at the last 4 games, he was averaging 160 yards a game on 10 catches and over 16 and a half yards per reception. Like he was really ascending into being one of the better receivers in college football until he got injured. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that continued climb up the mountain looks like for a guy like him. Looking forward to seeing what he looks like in a t-shirt and shorts, so to speak. Kind of see how he runs routes if he's at the Senior Bowl and performing there. And then just kind of looking at too how NFL teams view him. He's probably a day 2 guy. I think right now teams probably have him, I'd say in the late 2nd, early 3rd round. I think for me right now, I have an early day 2 grade, so early round 2. Just because I think, if he goes to the right team that needs a boots on the ground receiver, a guy that can be reliable, but also be someone after the catch that's a threat, I think he's a guy that teams definitely look for.
Nice. I'm going to say Andrew Armstrong of Arkansas is my guy that I think is not getting enough buzz. He was an 1,100-yard receiver at Arkansas this year. He's had 1,800 yards in 2 years in the SEC, and before that at Texas A&M Commerce, he had, I think, a 1,200-yard, 10-touchdown season or something like that. He's 6'4", 204. And the speed may not be there. Like, he may not have the primary receiver speed, but he can run routes. He has the part of the problem that he may not be at any All-Star games this year, and he may end up a late invite. But the reason that he hasn't is he had a hamstring injury to begin the year. It didn't stop him from putting up production, but you could see that he couldn't drop his weight into breaks early on in the season for probably the first 4 to 5 games of the season. But after that, and then last year, you could see his game and go, this guy can run timing routes. And he's tough at the catch point. I'd say he is close to having the best hands in this class. And that doesn't mean that they're great hands, but they're really good. He's consistent with his hands being pretty tight. He can get his fingertips together. His thumbs are good, but if you get his fingertips together, he won't have the occasional drop where the ball hits the tops of his hands and goes through his index fingers. So if he can get a little tighter there, but he makes really tough grabs. He's good at the boundary. Like he's that Hakeem Nicks type of, you can line up on an island with him or put him in the slot, and on the island, if you give him a two-way go and let him run some fades against a mismatched corner, he's going to win them. And he may beat some primary guys occasionally too because of his ability to time catches, take contact. He's pretty good after the catch too. So if he ends up running like 4.5, then he's in that range. And if he runs like a 4.5, I will probably, and seeing what I've seen of him and go back and watch some of the earlier tape and make sure that I see the explosion from the earlier tape before the injury and see more of that, he might be the most underrated player in this class by a large margin. So, yeah, he's my guy that I think, and I asked some people, I mentioned him to somebody, and he said, I'm going to ask some people in the league about him. And there was one guy they asked, and the person said, never heard of him. But they didn't cover the SEC. They only covered one region, so it's understandable that they never heard of him. But it was kind of shocking still because, again, played on a bad hamstring, played in the SEC, had 1,100 yards this year on 76 catches.
Yeah, it's not over 1,000 in college football in the SEC.
Yeah.
That's nothing to sneeze at, 100%.
Yeah, so this guy kind of is like, if he's super fast, he might be what people thought Justin Hunter was supposed to be back in the day.
Yeah.
If he's not quite that fast, I think he's more in that Hakeem Nicks mold. So yeah.
Oh, love that.
So how about moving down our list here? Let's end it this way. Who's your favorite route runner in this 2025 class?
Oh, Matthew Golden.
Yeah, sure.
I think I just like the bevy of releases. I think that's a That's a really fun part of his game. He keeps defensive backs guessing. He throws a lot at you. He's great at the stem. He's a good player. I mean, he's definitely the one that I'm like, this is someone I think that can really be a solid pro for a long time. Tez Johnson's my other.
I like Tez.
Um, he's a good player, man. He's one of those guys I think that's going to have a long career.
Yes.
He reminds me of Tyler Lockett a little bit.
I see that.
And his ability to return punts, tough for his frame. And it's just one of those guys where it's like you can rely on him in high leverage situations. And that's a really valuable trait. So for me, that's the thing I like is the route running for Tess is good, especially because obviously his size is something it's good for route running, right? We want to have less mass, makes it easier to change direction. But I'll say the thing I like the most about his route running is it shows up in high leverage situations.
Yeah.
That's the thing I like most. And when you watched Oregon last year, the go-to guy was Tez Johnson.
Yeah. For sure.
And so that's something for me that I note and I like to see when I watch film is where's the ball go when it matters? Yeah. Right. And do they respond? Do they make plays? Same thing with running backs, right? You're in the fourth quarter, you're down a touchdown, it's 4th and 2 on their 40. Everybody in the stadium knows who the ball is going to. How do you get to 2 yards, right? Yeah. Just things like that, especially for receivers, right? It's important, it's impactful. And I think NFL teams as well take a look at that pretty hard when they're looking at guys to bring in on day 2 and 3.
So Matthew Golden certainly is on my short list of guys that would be in my top tier of route running. He's absolutely there. I'll name some other guys before I get to my choice. Like if you want a strong guy with some speed, I wouldn't say great speed, but enough speed. Elic McMillan of Stanford certainly has some skills in his game that you could see how that might develop down the line. If you want really good route running, but you're just not sure whether he's going to catch the ball or not, it's Louisville's Ja'Cory Brooks. Brooks can run himself some routes, but you just don't know what you're going to get at the catch point.
Sure.
If you want good route running and good catch point stuff, but I'm not sure about explosion, Isaiah Bond of UNLV is a good route runner. What's that?
Ricky White, UNLV?
Oh, Ricky White. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Isaiah Bond. Who's Isaiah Bond with? I forget. Let me look real quick. Texas. Oh, yeah, Isaiah. Oh.
Or Alabama than Texas.
Oh, I forgot. I was thinking of Ricky White. Isaiah Bond. Oh, yeah. I think Isaiah Bond is actually better than people think as a route runner. I think he's I think he's up there in the same category. So forget what I was thinking. Ricky White when I saw Isaiah Bond, I got
no. It's okay. Similar size, get it, 100%.
Smooth route runner, and if he's just fast enough, he might be like one of those guys that in 2-3 years we hear about. Utah's Dorian Singer. I think Dorian Singer is a really good one. He's a smooth route runner, like very slick. He's got a very extensive vocabulary of tools in his tool chest, mixing metaphors there. But yeah, and then Ty Felton fits into the Ja'Cory Brooks camp where it's like good route runner, but are we sure he can catch the ball? And he's not quite as refined as those other guys. My guy, though, Pittsburgh's Konata Mumpfield.
Okay.
I think he's the best route runner in this class.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't, and it's close. I mean, I don't have him like head and shoulders above any of these guys, but if he runs a 4.55, that will probably be a victory for him at the combine if he gets to the combine. I think he's at one of the All-Star games. So he's
Shrine or Reese's.
I know one of those two. So I know that.
Okay.
So I know he's there. So that'll So he'll likely go to the combine. He played at Akron before this, I think, and he was a freshman All-American. And I watched this kid play, and he understands pace. He understands how to tell a story, and it's not playground bullshit either. It's like legit. Like I can run some routes, and sometimes he makes choices where it's like it's a little too sophisticated, and the defender doesn't bite on it because he's combining things he shouldn't quite combine there. But in the pros, I think it might even project a little better. But he's 6'1", 196, and he's a very knowledgeable route runner. Good releases, good stems, very good breaks, works back to the ball, and he might be the best pass catcher in this class too. Like
Go to the Shrine Bowl. Shrine Bowl.
There it is. So
That's
this
right.
week.
A really good one. Okay.
So I'll say this. Like I've joked online that I don't know if you know this, Brandon, but I for the past 5 years I've joked around that if I won the lottery and I could retire or semi-retire and I could have enough money like an NFL owner to buy an island, I would buy an island and name it RSP Island, and I would have the NFL's equivalent of the slam dunk contest, and it would be the Brandon Lloyd Aerial Artistry Invitational, brought to you by the RSP.
Illinois' finest, Brandon Lloyd.
Right there, you go. So we could put Larry Fitzgerald in that group in terms of aerial artistry and a couple other guys, but I think Brandon. I think I want to give Brandon a little love for something that he did singularly at a level that was almost non-parallel at times. And so we would judge it like the slam dunk contest. We'd have them up against corners, and we'd probably have to do some sort of a corner thing too to throw them a bone so that we get some competition with it. But we'd judge them on that. And if we had the college version, I would say Konata Mumpfield would be like the dark horse the dark horse to win the whole thing. Like he makes some plays as a pass catcher too. So if for some reason he's been playing with some injury and he runs like a 4.45 or anything under 4.5, this dude will be someone to watch closely. But I think 4.6 is going to be probably where he's at. And if he runs 4.6, that may even be a minor victory. We'll see. But he can run some routes, and in the intermediate, he's tough in the middle zone. Think Jawan Jennings with better route skills. Like that would be what this guy could probably do for you. Which means, he's a tertiary player who, when needed, can give you some good stuff. So he might also be him and Andrew Armstrong are my two like fave underrated kind of guys.
I love that. I was gonna say, LeJohne Wester.
Oh yeah.
Colorado.
Yeah.
He definitely. I mean, when you watch Shadur and Travis Hunter, those are obviously the main parts of the show. But I mean, he's a good player. I think he's gonna be someone too that might move up. Up draft boards. I think he's a draftable player.
Yeah.
He's of a draftable grade for sure. Good punt returner too. But yeah, he's someone that's kind of fun because he has that, the slider frame, right? He's 170 pounds, maybe soaking wet. Good route runner.
He's
it's
high
hard
on my list as route runners too. He's like, he's in the second tier for me, but it's like strong in the second.
Yeah, he's a good player. I think when you watch Colorado tape, he kind of pops for you a little bit too. Horn Jr. as well, I think is interesting as like a third level guy, potentially at the next level. But yeah, no, Wester's someone I'm definitely going to be watching. I think he's going to be someone at the combine too. I mean, if he runs like 4.3 something, right? I mean, he moves up boards for sure.
Yeah. Guys that we will probably be talking about on this show and other shows that I think I haven't mentioned, but I know I'm going to be talking about will be Kelly Akiri out of Mississippi State. Probably higher on him than a lot of people at this stage. So that's going to be a guy that will be keeping an eye on for. Jacoby George of Miami. I like some of what I see.
Yeah.
And another one of those in the tier of Andrew Armstrong at the top, and then Konata Mumpfield in the middle to bottom in terms of can they run fast enough to be more than what they are,
Sure.
is Nick Nash out of San Jose State. 6'3",
Sure.
195.
Okay, yeah.
And he is he is someone that I think is going to be an interesting dude. And I even think, like, I'm not in love with him, but like some of those guys that you go, oh, maybe in a few years they improve their game and they get better, and you're like, okay, like Caden Prather out of Maryland. I think he's one of those guys that I look at and go, I could see it going either way for him, but there's some things that with him that I could see how that works out. So yeah, so
Sure.
that's the wide receiver class in terms of what we see thus far. We always appreciate you checking out the work that we do, and of course, look, we'll be on in a couple of weeks. We'll probably start talking about running backs. I think it's probably going to be the next group that we'll be talking about, and we'll look forward to that and give it this similar rundown as we gave this week. And thanks as always for listening and your feedback. And the next time we're on, we'll probably do. I know we'll at least do one contest if Brandon's interested in doing one too to give away any subscriptions.
Sure.
Then we'll do that because I've got some RSP subscriptions to give away. We'll do that on our next show.
Love it.
We'll give away some of the subscriptions to your service, which is fantastic. You know where to find us. Definitely subscribe. Some people even, I laugh because some people are like, I subscribe because I appreciate the podcast you guys do, and I want to give back just on that part alone. And then usually what I hear is like, I did that, and then I realized what I'm getting, and I'm like, kind of scratch that. Like, I appreciate you guys doing a podcast, but this stuff's wild, So,
Yeah, sure.
so if you're doing it because you want to support the podcast, that's fine. But I would say if you want to support both of us, it would probably be best to get stuff for both of us, and they complement each other very well. So,
Sure.
and for the price, you probably spent more on Uber Eats just to feed you and your loved one.
I'll be honest, man. I got Uber Eats a couple nights ago. I think like the fee you pay is more than our subscription services combined.
Look, dude, I made a mean chicken soup the other day, and I thought, man, that's less than probably per bowl that was less than the service
100%.
fee of what you get at Uber.
Crazy.
Uber Eats will kill you, in more ways than one.
Yeah, get it.
All right, folks, enough of that. Have a good one.